Right, so we're back with another podcast, and today we've got Jeremy from Spectrum, who you saw on the very popular capital gains. That went well, didn't it?
Yeah, certainly got a lot of hits, loads of inquiries, and a lot of happy people and some sad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's what happens. I mean, we're in that time of the year at the moment from our capital gains podcast where you're talking to people and they're saying, right, we're ready to go. Oh, we're going to wait till July. But hey, it's better to that people are well informed and with no tax liabilities, isn't it? So just before we get started, just to remind you that you can also listen to this podcast on Spotify. All right, so if you're watching this now, you can listen to this on Spotify. If you found this podcast on Spotify, the link for the YouTube video is below. And you'll see that we are in the fantastic castle in Monda. This is our little secret meeting place, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it keeps us away from the crowds.
It does. Halfway between Marbella and Malaga, where I am. Instead of going along the coast, we come inland, half an hour each. Half an hour it takes you
Something
to
like that, yeah. Well, windy road, but it's lovely up here, and the views are today spectacular. So.
Yeah, and the cups of tea are huge, to be fair. So today we are going to talk a bit more. We've spoken about capital gains in the past, but what we didn't delve into was it's not just capital gains, is it?
No.
You know, I always speak to the clients and I'm like, okay, so they look at becoming a fiscal resident this year. Oh, I can take on a capital gains liability because I want to move. Okay, well, bang in a minute. It's all your income and it's your investments, it's your pensions and all of your financial planning. So we're going to delve a little bit more into that today. And these are the conversations that I don't get with the clients. Jeremy does, and thought it'd be good to take this one step further than the capital gains. So yeah, we're going to talk today about tax, pensions, investments, and then planning and subsequent renewals, aren't we?
Yeah, I think as a starting point, the move is, obviously, I always say it takes a particularly brave person, if you like, to immigrate. And once that decision's been made, it then suddenly the reality of, we hadn't thought of this and that. Yeah. So my conversations with people tend to be very much pre-leaving the UK driven. Mm-hmm. And I say to them that, there are a number of things that we have to consider, one of which is you're going to be living in a different country and everything you're used to will change.
Yeah.
The classic scenario, people say to me, but it's not like that in England. And I say to them, right, okay, well, fine. If you want to stay with the English understanding of things, come here and drive on the same side of the road as the one you're used to.
Yeah.
Very quickly, you have a problem.
Yeah.
And it's the same with your investments and pensions. So someone may have ISAs in the UK, which are savings accounts, which are tax-free. Mm-hmm. So those things can be sitting there. They're not taxed annually. And then now, when you move here, that's just an investment vehicle. The tax angle isn't there. So if you're harbouring profits in an ISA, let's say you've invested quite a while ago and it's now worth a lot more, to keep that and move to Spain would be quite naive because you would encash it in a taxable environment.
Oh, okay. So if you're keeping that there and you become a fiscal resident here,
so why not think logically? Not always, but in a lot of cases, why not take your profits in a tax-free environment, and then when you come here, we can do something else with that.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
Pension lump sums. People talk about it. It's called pension commencement lump sum now. Years ago, it used to be called your tax-free lump sum. Mm-hmm. For those of us that are a little suspicious, the word tax-free has been removed.
Is that sorry for my naivety, because you are talking to the residency guys. So this is the 25%.
That's right. It's the 25%. So if you've got a pension fund of £100,000 in the UK, you can take 25,000 at your retirement date, and it's tax-free.
Right.
But if you move here and a year later say, I want my 25% now, that's taxable.
Yeah.
So again, things like the consideration, look, if you haven't taken it, we need to talk more about this and consider it more, but maybe it makes sense to take that, even if you don't spend it, and then we can put it to one side somewhere in Spain that works and is tax efficient. So there's that, and then there's, what if I draw my pension? Can I buy an annuity? Well, you can, and of course that's taxed completely differently here to just drawing down flexible drawdown from your pension. So and then what about money in the bank? Interest is taxed annually here, etc.
Yeah.
So there's a whole financial world over and above. We touched on capital gains for selling a property, but your whole life and your pot of gold in these different areas they all need to be considered, because what we're looking to do when you move here is create passive income for you, because if you were self-employed, you've had a business making money. If you're employed, you've had a pay packet at the end of every month. That's going to stop when you retire and move here.
Yeah.
So that money now needs to work. So a lot of my time will be spent then when they're here saying, well, what your outgoings like? Can we plan? So it's a whole till death do us part type.
So that brings me right back to what you were saying there, is the initial conversation. So we have these initial conversations probably 2 or 3 years before people come sometimes it's 6 months. And everybody seems to be focused on, like our last video, the capital gains.
Yeah.
But I can always remember this case, and now you'll have to excuse me because I'm going to dumb this down for me.
Yeah.
You know? But there's people who are, sat on large pension pots, or maybe 2 or 3 because they've worked in 2 or 3 different companies.
Yeah.
And, and they may have a capital gain, say, of 100 grand. Right, and they're focused on that liability of the capital gain, when really the problem's with the pension pot because they haven't planned the 25%.
People need to look at the whole thing.
Yeah,
it's very easy to say, right, okay, capital gains problem solved, let's go.
Let's go, yeah. Which is the general.
But my role working with you is to say, well, just stop the bus. Let me talk you through all the things that are, and have you thought about this? Mm-hmm. Even to the point where I say to people, do you know what your outgoings are going to be like when you move here?
Yeah.
So send them an Excel spreadsheet and fill it in. I've got a huge growing wealth of experience of working with people who have moved here, and I know roughly what it costs to live in Almeria versus Marbella versus Malaga.
Yeah.
So those different things, and whether you play golf, whether you don't play golf, whether your grandkids come over a lot and you pay for the flights, because the usuals. So it's the whole, what I would call in the word financial planning is planning. There's no rocket science, there's no magical magician work going on in the background. It is very simply, let's make sure that everything is what you've got, you know what you've got. Amazing amount of people that haven't ever sat down and said, right, this is our life.
Yeah, you said that, and it's funny because evidently I'm nowhere near retirement at the moment, but recently we've had some movements in our household with houses and stuff, and I had to sit down with Lara.
Yeah.
Because we just work and crack on, right? And then you sit down and go, hang on a minute, well, that insurance is there, this is here. Oh, we saved that there. This is the asset. And we had to sit down, and even myself, because you're working on a daily basis, we had to literally sit down and have a look at it and everything. Go, right, okay. And that's a small part of family planning and moving forward for someone in their 40s. So someone who's moving over here and has probably done an extra 20 years of that and amassed wealth that they're probably not even too sure of. Yeah, they're not too sure of the liabilities that hold either. In terms of tax and moving over. It's
clearing the decks before you leave, in a sense, and then when you're here, for people to adjust to the new life. I've got lots of examples of where people are scared of spending money when they're here because of what I talked about earlier. They're so used to money coming in at the end of the month. They're so used to, if they're self-employed, taking dividends, knowing what is there. All of that stops, and they've got this sort of mystical pension pot. They've got this money that was ISAs that is invested, and it's invisibly working for them in the background if it's making money.
Yeah.
So that's what I call passive income, and it's the passive income fear where people are saying, well, should we be going for a long weekend in Morocco because we don't really know where we're at? So that's where my role is.
You don't move here for that.
Yeah, exactly. I want people to enjoy retirement, so I spend a lot of time one-on-one meetings in the early days with people, getting through this psychological barrier of my money's making money for me now, not me.
Yeah.
And it's the passive income story. And after a while, people get used to it, and on reviews, as long as things have gone well, they've got more money than they had last time. And then they can get their head around, well, if we're spending €3,000 a month, but our investments are growing by 5, we're accruing capital, we're not going to run out. So that's the part of the job that I enjoy. That is the planning part. Tax is tax, it's straightforward. What's my rate? What will I pay? Is there any way we can reduce that?
Right.
And the other thing that we didn't touch on really is state pensions. Most people are entitled to state pensions, and checking that that's fully funded and what they'll get as well. A lot of people don't know.
Can you top that up then?
You can, yeah. So when you look at that, if there's a top-up situation, it's $1 million question because it will depend on how long you live as to whether that top-up was worth it or not, but most of the time it is. So maybe using a bit of the money you've encashed from the pension or the ISAs to push towards maximising the state pension.
Wow. And obviously people with state pensions can save a lot of money on their healthcare because they can use an S1.
Exactly.
But
exactly. Yeah. So it's age dependent as well. I think you and I are seeing, I won't say a sea change, but people are getting younger that are moving here. Retirees would be 65 plus, but all of a sudden retirees are 55 plus. With that comes no state pension, no S1, healthcare, a different set, and obviously longer to live off the capital they've accrued. So.
And this is where the planning comes in, doesn't it? Because you've spoken to so many of our clients, and now just to mention, we're doing now a lot of second renewals going into the years 4 and 5, which in theory is the point where people at the year 5 don't actually have to show the financial requirements, though it's always good to be able to show how you're supporting yourself. But this 5-year planning period, and we've worked for a few clients together from the start, where we've gone through the renewals, we've structured the renewals, so the assets are in place, either the passive income, which is proven and recurring, which we use, or there may be amount of savings which is combined with the passive income, and obviously the documentation which is required, which is in Spanish, etc., from any sort of investment. To do the renewal, and so it is tried and tested and proven, and it's been quite a journey learning how conscientious you need to be about people's thoughts and what they're thinking moving into the future, and it's quite hard and to turn around and say to people, actually not quite yet, or you need to do this.
I think one of the words you used then is the learning process. Every time we get a new client, every time we have someone new move here, for us it's another bit more experience. It's another client scenario that maybe I can relate to another client. They tend to be similar, but there's the little nuances. But with our building experience now, with confidence, we're able to go through the renewal procedure. We're also aware of the wobbles that people have. The amount of people that I say, 6 months in, you can have that wobble. It's difficult with people. Missing the grandkids, those sorts of things. So but again, that's why we're here. You're not just doing visa applications. I'm not just looking at the money. We are working alongside people as, if you like, a voice of experience. I like to think. So I can impart, and you can as well, these are scenarios that we're familiar with, don't worry about that, I've seen that before, we need to go to a different police station, or I can say, oh, don't worry, no, that's wrong, your accountant hasn't filed your tax return properly, it's not treated that way, etc. Let me speak to them for you. So those sorts of things are, every day I think is another day where we just learn a tiny bit more from experience. We do, and especially, touch wood, the NLV process has improved so much with getting one of the good things, which actually also helps the tax and the financial and the investment planning, the financial planning, is the fact that we can now get appointments at the front end virtually straight away. There was a wobble with Manchester at Christmas, but there was that part in the past where you said, okay, well, actually, the clients really need to be able to tell you when they're going to move and make that sort of plan, don't they? So that's not a wobble. And the renewals as well, they seem to be flying through, which is good. And more the sub-delegations are getting used to electronic documents, which we used to just be stamp bank account statement. Who has stamp bank account statement? I know. Please go and stand in the branch, and then they stamp it and won't sign it, and I've been there 1,000 times.
So it's like we have that, but more and more we're seeing that the process is getting better, and the good thing about it is we're getting towards that 5-year point where we're going to have clients who are going into the permanent residency. And
we'll have a much better idea then as well, won't we, as to exactly what happens to that. But the other thing I think what I've seen recently is a lot of purchases falling through in the UK. So people have made all the plans around the move. And where I think the sales are falling through is I think mortgages are getting harder to get or less affordable, and therefore, although the purchaser or intended purchaser has made an offer and it's all been agreed, when it comes to, right, where's your money? The mortgage company are playing, or the bank are messing me around. I've seen quite a few of those at the moment. So again, it's all part of, well, that's fine, but every time there's a change at the other end, we know what to do and everything. Which is why I always say to people, this is a plan, and you take steps at a time. You don't, suddenly encash your pension lump sum. You don't do these things until we've got
Last
concrete
minute.
house sales. We know when things are going along until we've spoken to the pension provider. So,
Well, that brings me sort of to like one of my last questions was, so if, for example, someone is thinking of moving, what happens is they'll contact us. Evidently, they're focusing on the red flags for the NLV. If we're talking about NLV, do they actually qualify? But after that, it very much, sometimes in my initial conversation, people will skirt around the financials, but we don't normally get too deep into it. But we definitely recognise when there's an issue or they need to speak to somebody else, which is generally when they have a conversation with you. What those people, before they have that conversation with you then, who's watching the video now, before they sit down and you make them realise that, oh, actually you need to pull this out the drawer and where did you get that? What would you tell them to prepare before talking to you?
make sure you know everything you've got, where it is and what it is.
Right.
That sounds oversimplified, but you know, it's, and just even if it's just written down on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You know, we've got this in the bank, we've got this, you know, and have an idea of. The other thing is, you know, it's people say, right, we're going to sell up in the UK and we're going to buy in Spain at this amount. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever met anyone, maybe a couple of people, that have come here and spent what they said they were going to spend. They tend to spend more.
Yeah.
I think the estate agents push them up the ladder a little.
Yeah.
And with that comes, well, you know, be careful that you don't spend too much of your honey pot when you get here and have a lovely house, but not enough capital behind you to generate the income that you need.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a funny one. It's just talk to us. We're here to talk to.
Definitely.
You and I have been talking to people, some people, for years, and they've not actually pulled the pin and moved yet. But
No. So it's
sometimes
good.
we put them off. Quite rightly so as well. You know, if we can help, don't make a mistake if it's not right. I don't think we're shy of telling people.
No, absolutely not. No, we've got a lot of clients which are coming on board this year, which we had to put off last year. Believe it or not, due to certain tax and issues, and you know they're going to be happy. They're moving forward with their plan this year. Yeah. And well, just one last point then, which I didn't throw in the notes actually. What about this new thing from Sanchez about 100% tax on houses for non-residents?
I only saw that this morning on my Sky News feed.
I only saw it this morning. Someone sent me a financial.
If you read, I'm sure they don't mean, but if you read, I've read it 2 or 3 times in shock, and the word residency comes up a lot.
Yeah.
So what I think he's suggesting is, if you're going to buy 3 or 4 holiday homes to Airbnb and they're not your residence, we want to tax you 100%.
Yes.
I don't think it applies to people that are moving here to move here. So if I was selling up in the UK and buying a house in Spain and going to live in it, I'm a resident. It's a residency. That's all I could glimmer from a little bit of reading, you know, saying, okay, that would be too drastic to say anyone that buys here as a foreigner.
And it's serious. This serious buying for investment by foreigners attack at the moment by getting rid of the golden visa, and now this sort of.
Is it really as big an issue as they say though? Because most people I know that are doing that and buying things, those property prices are far out of reach of the local domestic bar worker and his wife who want to get married and buy a little house.
Absolutely. I mean,
so we're talking of, you know, there's one thing here and another thing. That's the marketplace we need to concern for those people.
Yeah.
This one wouldn't be there unless it was for foreigners. Maybe sweeping statement, but so there was a little bit chicken and egg, really. Is that the real cause of the problem?
No, definitely. I think that
affordable housing's the real cause.
I think affordable housing is the real cause. I think that it's going to. It may change planning in the way that we do speak to clients who plan to sell, buy here first, then come over 2 years later, rent in the UK, etc., etc.
Yeah.
That kind of
put a spanner in the works. Say the only way you can do this and avoid that tax is to just move here and it's your home.
Yeah, or move here and
But what do they do about all the people that already own a second home here? Do they go back to them and say, okay, we've decided we want 100% tax on that property? So it's a sweeping political statement. Maybe to shock.
And it was an article that was buried in many others.
Yeah.
So it was, everybody's picked up on it, I think it was number 7 or 8 on the list. I can't remember now. I think it was this morning. And there's a lot in there which is to help the housing market and try and bring prices down. Personally, I think all it's going to do is in areas where foreigners buy, maybe drive the prices up because people will be rushing
it's
to
a
go.
weird one because they're talking about, they're raving about the GDP growth in Spain this last year being the highest in Europe, and exceeding Germany and Greece and all of these other places. And they actually state, and this is down to the growth in tourism.
Yeah.
And then there's the other end of the spectrum, an anti-tourism, drive the Gearys out, we don't want them here because we can't afford houses anymore. So, political, isn't it?
It is, and there's a long way to go before it goes through the Parliament, and there's already counter-arguments. So I don't think 100% tax is going to be passed. I don't think there's anything to worry about immediately. And as far as I can tell, what I've told, because we had a lot of messages about it this morning from people, was that I said, look, if you're planning to get an LV, it just means the timing of purchasing your property is different, or don't purchase at all.
Yeah.
Look at using your cash asset in a different way. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's
it's a long way away, I'm sure. But it's up to us to keep an eye on those things. But when I read it this morning, it was a bit of a gulp, and then I read it again and again and again. I thought, oh, come on, this is silly. This couldn't go through as it's.
I started getting the messages yesterday, and then suddenly this morning my inbox was full of links to different articles and people saying this is going to destroy it. I'm going, no. So I got that the day of the golden visa. Let's just all calm down at the moment. On that front, it may never even happen. So brilliant. Well, cheers, Jeremy, for coming on again.
Lovely venue to meet.
It is, and if you want to, there is a link below. If you want to speak to Jeremy, just fill it in, and he will be automatically notified. Just bear in mind that everybody's really busy at the moment, so we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But it is very important, definitely from our point of view, when we are planning a residency, when we're planning an NLV. It's not just NLVs either. Okay, so we always focus on NLVs because that's sort of our main service product. But there's also, you've been helping recently clients that we have coming on an EU platform who have an EU passport and a family member, and their whole timeline shifts because with an NLV you're aiming at this and it's a bit of a wobbly timeline because you can never quite hit the target depending on the consulates and administrations. But with an EU you can. An EU, so I'm moving over on this date and this is when I'm going to get my residency, and that takes a whole different sort of scope.
It's just it's a conversation point, and we're here to talk to people about things. It's because from my point of view, our objective really collectively is to say I want people to come here having made a well-informed decision themselves. And the only way you can be well-informed is with facts and figures that are correct. And have you thought about this? And if I can put that to someone and say, right, put the phone down, go away, speak together, go and have a cup of tea somewhere, but you make sure that when you come to this decision, you've had all points considered and you've made a right decision based on all of those facts. Exactly. And that's it. That's what we do.
Ultimately, for our job, we need to know you've got the money that we can prove to immigration and you qualify. But obviously behind that backstory, there's just so much. And so thanks for coming on and talking about that today, because it's something that I really wanted to get out there, and we will be doing more podcasts like this over the course of the year. And so thanks for watching. Don't forget that you can listen to this on Spotify. I'm going to ask you a favour, because only 25% of people who actually watch the channel are subscribers.
Right, okay.
Right. So if you are watching it and you've got anything out of it, please just hit subscribe, because we're going for 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We're nearly at 4, but we're going for 5. That's our target for this year. And we'll catch up soon with the next podcast.
Thank you.